welcome to the Transition Podcast, Lourdes.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm excited to have you. Pleasure to meet you. I know that you have a really good relationship with Lourdes Riusech, my business partner, and you're a client of the office. I actually happen to have met your husband in the past.
I was going to say, you are more connected to my husband, which is funny.
So I met Javi, yeah. And I'll never forget his crazy story about the whole plane thing.
Yeah.
He should just come on and talk about that. Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but
absolutely.
So her husband, Javi, is an attorney. Great guy. We met each other when I was a part of the Land Builders Association, and we just happened to connect and whatnot. And one day we were having a conversation, and he tells me that he was in a plane crash. His plane landed in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I think he was out there for several amount of hours.
Yes.
And he's a miracle. He's saved by God's grace. I have no idea how to put that. I can't imagine what that was like for you as a wife.
I say my story's worse, actually. 100% worse than his story.
Were you on that plane?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
It was actually him and one of our best friends, Danny Puig, and Javi actually happens to be the godfather to his son, and I'm the godmother to Danny's daughter. So this is like friends in our family. And we were out in the Bahamas with one other family as well, and that person ended up deciding not to go on the plane. He's like, I'll stay here. You guys go back, because they wanted to go work for a few days. And so Javi gets on the plane, and I don't know if you know this part of Javi, he doesn't like to fly either. So, but he felt a lot of pressure as far as like, I have to get back into the office. We're trying to stay for 2 weeks and let's go. And so I said, it's fine. Get on the plane. You might feel better, even though you don't like to fly. You may feel better. You're like in the front. You're gonna see all the the controls, and you're gonna hear it, and that may make you feel like more in control. And he's like, yeah, totally pumping him up. And I'm like, you got this. You totally got it.
Wow.
And so he takes off. Thank goodness it was early morning. It was like a 7 a.m. flight. So and clear skies. I mean, the elements were right for him to still be here. But essentially, they take off, and getting sort of close, he could start to see Bimini, and he's thinking all these things. He's like, Lily was right. I'm feeling good. I'm on this, smaller plane. It's okay. And all of a sudden, he said, he heard the gas sort of give one of the lines, and it's like the propeller stops. It's a double prop plane. And then the pilot was like, it's okay, we have the other side. We'll just transfer it, move the gas over to the other one. And then like 2 minutes later, the prop stopped.
Oh my God.
And Javi's like, what the heck? Like me of all, like he's thinking, him of all people, how could this happen to me? And so, he's like trying to glide into Bimini, but they don't make it. And so it wasn't super deep, but it was probably still like 30 feet deep water. Like obviously you can't stand or do anything. And Jav's part of the story is like, in that scenario, like the plane hits and he's thinking, I was like, oh, so does it bounce? Like does it take a little while? And he's like, no, it literally hits and like goes down. So actually our buddy getting out was underwater. He was submerged by the time he's coming out. I think Javi survived in the sense of he was in charge of opening the door. And I'm like, the fact that he had to like hit the door and get out, and all these other lives were, his responsibility pushed them to like open the door and smack it open. But
crazy.
He gets out. I mean, and I'll try and abridge it as much as possible. It essentially like, they had grabbed like the life vest or whatever, like put it on, and it was some old life vest. And he says, he like pulls the cord, and it's like inflates, and 2 seconds later it's like deflates, and he's like, I'm gonna tread water for I don't know how long. Lucky for him, there was I guess a container ship not too far, but if you understand container ships, they don't go fast. So it's legit like to turn this guy over and it come towards them. It was hours like between it getting there, and then finally when it gets there, the guy like throws a rope over, and Javi's like, I've been treading water for like an hour. His friend had like one side of his vest was inflated, the other side didn't work either. And so they're, sort of trying to not hold on to each other, because he's like, we're both going to go down. But the container finally gets there, throws the rope over, and he's like, then I'm Spider-Manning up this container ship, and
that's like stuff that you can't you can't script that.
No. My side of the story is actually
when do you get that call?
So I'm on the island, and
you're on okay.
Yeah, like
so you're waiting for him.
Well, he's taking off to Miami to go work for a few days and come back. So I'm still there with our kids, who at the time were like, I want to say Emma was 5 and Matias was 7. And I get this, Bahamian running into the house because they happen to know the family. And they were like, the plane went down and there are no survivors. And I was like, wait, what? Like, you're kidding. And in that sense, I do think of sports in a way, like it really put me in this, I become hyper-focused. It's sort of a thing where I'm like, I looked at the kids and I was like, I need you out of the house because we're watching like an R movie. It was the only thing I could think of. It's an adult movie. I need you out of the house, just so that I could sort of process and think of what's our next step. Yeah, because this is the information I'm given. And so, I look at the other wife, and then she started getting a little bit hysterical. And I was like, listen, let's get in the car. We're going to drive to the airport. We're going to, get whatever information we could get. Let's go. And she's like, okay, and we sort of go, and literally people were getting into the airport, and they're, like, hugging us. And I'm just thinking, like, Jesus. I mean, this is what I got. Like, this is the actual information. And at that point, I'm thinking, how am I going to get back to Miami? I need to get the kids. I don't want them to be afraid to get on a plane, to go back home. Like, it's just all these things sort of swirling.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
in that moment, do you think you lost your husband?
Yeah, no, I mean...
Like, you're like...
Yeah,
you're 100% like, Javi's gone.
Yeah, yes, I thought... When the gentleman came in and said... the plane went down, they knew, everybody knows the planes as far as it's it's like Gray Harbor, it's like 4 planes that come in and out of this island. It isn't, Nassau where you have a ton of planes. So everybody knows each other, which is why he knew to come to this house, our friend's house. And so, yeah, I mean, it was really
intense.
Yeah, like a difficult moment of just, but I was almost thinking it's not me alone, it's, our kids too, and how do I process this in a way that I could get them, back. So, lucky, it wasn't his day. Like, it just wasn't his day. And I think he finally gets on the container ship after he's like, I'm treading water. I Spider-Man up the container ship. And one of the guys, it was one of these container ships that just goes back and forth, like between Fort Lauderdale and I think like Honduras or something like that. They have like a specific route. And they were like in some triangle that none of the cell phones worked, but finally he gets out and he gives him his cell phone and he was able to call me. And I was just like, I mean, of course, at that point you're like overwhelmed. And
you broke. Did that moment change you, like your outlook on life? In some way?
Absolutely. I think it has to. I think there's no way that it wouldn't. I don't want to say I joke about it. And
it's like that's fine too, right?
It's however you deal with it. Yeah, like however you feel like you could deal with it. I think for me it was more of a, for example, we enjoy wine. I really.
So do I.
I'm like,
Don't tell Louis that either. We'd have a bottle of wine in this middle of the podcast.
Let's go. But yeah, we enjoy. We enjoy good wine. We like to go and find out about different vineyards and the history of the vineyard. Like,
you're all into it.
Yeah, like all in. And Javi and I would have some bottles, and I'm always like, just between both of us, he'd be like, well, we'll open this one at the right time. Like we're gonna wait for a special occasion to open it. And I think that, experience made me where like every day is a special day to open whatever you have. So now I'm a very expensive person because I'm like, today is Tuesday. And
the palate, they changed the palate. Yeah, so that's a very similar story, and I'm trying to think of his name right now, and it'll hit me. There's a gentleman who lives out, and he has a very successful company out in South Carolina. My brother actually was coaching basketball at the University of Miami as a GA in 16, the year they went to the Elite Eight. Mm-hmm. He was under there with Coach Larinaga. And God, I want to remember his name. Puerto Rican gentleman, runs a very successful marketing company. It'll come to me. But long story short, this gentleman was in the plane crash in the Hudson River.
Okay.
And if you listen to his TED Talk, he's a big wine guy. And he said, you have no idea how many times I left bottles of wine for Saturday for the right occasion. And he's like, now I drink good wine every single day. So it's so crazy that you're telling me the same thing, because I'm going to get you his name. You need to listen to his TED Talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he just talks about when the Hudson was coming down, he had flashbacks the whole time of his wife and his kids, and it's super powerful. And he's a wine guy, and he's like, I no longer, like, if
you don't wait.
If my bottle of Camus is available today, we're going to have a nice bottle of Camus.
Yeah.
If it's available tomorrow, we're going to drink it tomorrow, because we just don't know. And it's funny, I haven't put on any content on this, but I was telling, I had said something today is about, we live in this world where there's all this conversation about like empathy and love and all that. And there's no doubt that we need that. Like 100% we need that. But I do believe that there's principles and boundaries of discipline and character that we must have. And we got to encourage our kids to have that, because life is tough, and life is amazing.
Yeah. But
life throws you curveballs and look at Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
He's in his car to go. I believe he was going his way to film a commercial with Drew Brees in California, and if you look, next thing you know, at 7 a.m. he's in a hospital getting, his legs were all completely fractured. And if you looked at the vehicle on the news, you would have thought that Tiger Woods was dead.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
We're all here. We all serve a purpose, and I just think that we just have to embrace life as best we can. I know it's easier said than done sometimes. We get so caught up sometimes in this world and about the demands of this world, but I think there has to be an ability to kind of let go and really allow yourself to live life to its fullest, and we'll jump into that. So let's talk a little bit about you're a female. You played tennis at American University.
Yeah.
Before we get into that real quick, where'd you go to high school here? Where'd you go? Give me a little bit of background about Lourdes.
So I actually was born in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
I was there because my father was studying law. I'm first generation, both parents Cuban.
Okay.
Actually, and so my father is first person in his family to go to school. Ends up going through law school at Inter-American in Puerto Rico, and so my brother and I, my younger brother and I, are born there. But had the whole family here in Miami, so pretty early on we moved to Miami just to be closer to family. I grew up here in Miami. I think almost like that standard Cuban story of like, we came from Puerto Rico, lived in my grandmother's house for a while till we knew where we were going and what we had to do. And, my grandmother was rock solid, like huge, probably inspiration for me as far as, she didn't get married until she was, in her 30s. Which for a Cuban woman at that time was rare and didn't happen, but she insisted on going to nursing school before getting married. She had actually met my grandfather. That story is crazy. She met my grandfather when she was 18. My grandfather was 13 years older than her. Wow. And he's like, let's just get married. And she was like, no, I have to go to school. I'm not going to get married yet. And so they essentially like break up, and she leaves and she goes to nursing school. And she, at some point, the story goes, they run into each other, like walking through the streets in Havana. And like, at that point, I think she was like 32 and he was, 45. Mm-hmm. And he had never married. He's like, you've been the love of my life. I haven't, and so she's like, okay, I finished nursing school. Like we could get married now. And so, she was an older grandparent for me, but definitely that just strong personality and determination for sure, I think resonates a lot. And she pretty much raised us because, both my parents worked. So she was sort of the one picking up at school and stuff. And I ended up going to Holy Cross.
Okay.
Which is now Archimedean on Sunset on like 124th.
Yeah, I remember Holy Cross.
And so I went to school there, which, you know, was an interesting experience. And I say that in the sense of, like, I had, like, the first double graduating class of 36. So it's a tiny school where you are really close. But I'd say, you know, those friends are still in my life because, I mean, there was nowhere else to go. I was like, it's just you guys, you know, all the time.
Yeah.
So, and
were you playing tennis at Holy Cross?
So Holy Cross didn't have a tennis team, and tennis is a little bit different from baseball, probably, in the sense of, like,
I'm learning that. Actually, I told you with Olivia, I'm learning that.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and you know, and I say, like,
it makes it a little more difficult, like, because it's like,
it's on you.
Yeah,
it's totally on you. And yeah, my grandmother would take me to practice every day. How I even got into tennis is funny in the sense of, like, I was always athletic. Like, I think, you know, I had a little bit of that natural athleticism and loved being outside. You know, on my dad's side of the family, actually, I'm the only girl, like the only female.
Okay.
So it's all
boys,
male cousins, and so I was the first one, like, we're gonna throw the football and we're gonna play basketball all day, and I enjoyed it a lot. And at the same time, it made it really hard, I think. Like, you know, again, coming from sort of like that, I don't want to say it's stereotypical, but, like, you know, a little bit of that old Latin family where it was like the girls should be, you know, not necessarily be throwing the football, or, you know, especially here, it was very highlighted because I'm the only one. So I think at one point my dad actually, this is horrible, like, my dad one time comes up and he's like, I was playing, like, on a basketball league, and my dad's like, you gotta just play a sport with a skirt. Like, that's what you gotta do. And I'm thinking, I have to play a sport. Like, I can't imagine not doing that. And I was like, there's no ice here. Like, I can't figure skate. Like, what else is there with a skirt? And I think legit that's how I started playing tennis. I was wearing my Converse that I was still, you know, playing basketball in.
That's crazy.
And got into tennis because I was like, I need to do something. I liked the competition, you know, sort of running and just being outside. And so, but tennis is hard. I mean, I don't want to say, like, you know, necessarily compared to other sports, but it's for sure, you know, it's an individual sport, so you don't have sort of that backup of the team. If you have a bad day, it's on you. You know, it's not like, oh, I didn't play great and we won. It's sort of like,
you won or you lost, yeah.
You won or you lost.
And I'm experiencing that with Olivia. Like I said, I watch her practice, and her coach is also a gentleman named George, Puerto Rican, was a professional tennis player in Puerto Rico, and he's demanding on her, and he's tough on her, and you know, Olivia's a female. She can be sensitive sometimes. She can be emotional, but she's also tough, and it's different
9.
because she's 9. She's a baby. She's trying to figure this whole thing out, and it's like I watch my son play, and you know, and he plays soccer and baseball now, and it's like, okay, well, if he doesn't do something right, well, his teammates can pick him up. She has nobody to pick her up. It's like it's her brain. But one of the things I admire about tennis is that fact that it's like kind of a little bit like golf, where you have a tennis coach who can talk to you a little bit, and you have the caddy, but you have to have the ability to really, like, pick yourself up. And your thought patterns probably play such a huge role in how you talk to yourself and how you know, stay positive in those moments of adversity in the middle of when you're playing. But it's definitely a demanding sport. He gave me today a video of a little Russian girl. She's got to be 11 years old, and her mom was the whole story is about this little 11-year-old girl, and her mom is, you know, she was 20. She was a professional doubles player. Okay. And she decided at the age of 21 to have a family. But now, you know, she's got 3 girls, and this one girl is a star. But she lives in Russia, and there she goes to a school. It's like an institution where you literally play tennis all day long, guys. Like, you have no idea. Like, this is like next level stuff. There's like, it's tennis, and then it's like school. It's the opposite. It's not, hey, we're going to educate you, make sure that your curriculum is correct, and then you'll play tennis.
And that happens here too, by the way. Like,
I mean, more. I think
They asked me to do that. I mean, and so
like
this is a while ago.
IMG and stuff like that. Yeah.
This is, I mean, so it's even worse now for kids, especially. You know the intensity that you know some of these leagues are doing, and I remember them approaching me to be like, well, you have to decide and go to some of these places that you're just training all day, and then you'll go to school for like a couple hours. So it happens everywhere. It's the sport that like.
And especially like, you know, about baseball, just because I'm familiar with it, like you go to the Dominican Republic, those kids are practicing, like, you know, they're 5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
They're trying to like figure this whole thing out. Like, you know what, we live in such a beautiful country. There's like, we actually have the freedom and the ability to here to like be able to prosper and have liberty. It's such a precious thing. Like, there's a part of me, like, as I've watched more documentaries and I've become more familiar with you know, I have a good friend of mine who's now working international in baseball scouting, and I'm learning more about tennis and soccer and whatnot. When you look at sports outside of the United States, it's almost like a survival type of mentality. It's like, okay, I'm going to just, you know, this is my way out. You know?
Absolutely.
And I do think that mindset exists here in certain areas, but nowhere near.
It's not the same.
It's definitely not the same. So you end up getting a scholarship at American University?
I do, and so yeah, like tennis is different in that sense where you know you could play high school tennis, and I had friends who played for the high school team, but they were just for those matches and stuff. It isn't like they're in the day-to-day practice because you're too busy doing your own training. So it isn't a sport necessarily that the high school level, you know, once you're at that level, is something that you necessarily do. Especially like Florida is one of the top states in the country for tennis as well. Like California, you know, where there's sun the whole year round.
Weather, yeah.
And so I was already competing like at certain national tournaments and, you know, international tournaments. And so I was recruited by different schools and ended up going to American University, which was a great experience. I mean, and it's one of those schools, just even to your point, like, I think it was me and, you know, 2 or 3 other Americans at a time, like per year. Otherwise, we had, you know, 3 of my teammates were from Russia, Bulgaria, and it really was a way of like, how do I get an education? How do I get out? And so,
how do I come here, right?
Not speaking a ton of English, you know, like they were just getting by, and you know, but they wanted to build a life and sort of grow. So the team was made up. It was super international. I mean,
it's amazing. So Lourdes, I mean, you own a company called yzTeach.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. You're female. You were an athlete. You played tennis. You know what it's like to have to wake up, train, work hard, fail, keep failing, to find out how to win. How much has that helped you in your entrepreneur spirit, and as a female, as a mom?
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm a big advocate for mommies. I think that there's nothing. I think that, you know, there's a reason why certain things are the way they are, and I just think that sometimes that mom is the safe zone, and then dad's more disciplinary, and things evolve. But how, if you look back at your life now, you have a son who's Aurora at Belen, and he seems to be loving that from our conversation prior to the podcast. How do you think that part of your life really helped shape you and helped you become the wife, the mom, the entrepreneur, the drive, because you have a lot of responsibilities. You're a wife, you're a mom, you have a business, and it's a lot for a woman. How did that game, do you think, prepare you?
So the background actually on yzTeach, I'm actually a lawyer also.
Forgot to mention that, but you are an attorney.
I actually, you know.
So you went to law school.
I went to law school. After American, I actually graduated from the University of Miami School of Law, and you know, it was so interesting, sort of similar to your experience, where I left that world where I was training, and tennis is every single day. I mean, even in college, it's a full year round.
It's a full-time job.
There's not a season in college when it's fall and spring, you're playing tennis, you go early, spring breaks are in tournaments, so you're not doing anything else the whole year. And so when I started law school, it was for sure a hard transition, getting into that. But the story actually with yteach is because the founder of yteach is actually my son. The idea is his. And so
Let's talk about that.
So to get into, that mentality of sports and the competition, and when I became a mom, I never saw myself. It wasn't like I envisioned, I'm going to be at home. I mean, I went to law school and I'm thinking I'm going to be at some huge firm and this is where I'm supposed to go.
Correct. I'm going to be at Holiday Night or Greenberg or wherever.
Somewhere. And, my husband and I got married basically my last year of law school. And so Javi and I are just starting out. He's also an attorney as well at Bills and Sunberg. And I worked for a couple years and 3 years. So I'm working for 3 years. We decided to start a family and it was really hard. I didn't have that option of I did, the luxury, I didn't have my grandmother who was able to help me necessarily. And at that point, we're both legit just starting. We're trying, it sounds, as if this attorney's salary should be crazy. And you can definitely make a good living, but you're talking hours.
No, I can imagine.
When you break down the per hour, it's probably not that much money that we're making. But we did make that decision. And I said, okay, I guess I'll stay home. And when the kids were little and just starting school, I know I'm really hard on myself. I know naturally, I'm sure you are too. You're a bit of
your worst enemy sometimes.
Many times, and so
I hear you, and I think that's a natural part of an athlete, and it's why you're successful, and it's why you go places, and it's also.
It can hurt you.
It can also hurt you, and you have to have that other person kind of reminding you, hey, dude, you're doing a great job. But I get it.
For sure. My kids essentially start school, and I know that my competitive drive, I was always okay, I can't be that parent who's going to be what did you get on that test? Did you, what did you learn? And being so focused on that, I was sort of thinking, I had to ask him first thing every time my kids get in the car. And I still try to ask them every single day now as an 8th grader and a 6th grader. I'm what did you do to help somebody today? And so before I would ask about a test or any anything, I was what'd you do to help? And
I love that. I hope everybody hears that. Her first question to her kids is, what did you do to help somebody today?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And until he was, in preschool, they're I gave somebody a crayon, or, I helped a friend, I held the door for the class or whatever. And then in 5th grade, Matthew gets in the car and, I'm about to turn around and I'm so, and he's don't ask me. Today, I thought of a way, not to help one person, but many people every day. And so he, at that moment, was I think we could create an app, and it'll be called, he knew the name of the company, which we're actually under Young Teachers, and so it's an abbreviation is yteach.
Okay.
And so he designed all of that too.
So the Y stands for Young Teach.
Young Teachers Inc. is the company, and so the app is the Y from Young, and Teach from Teachers, Young Teachers, yteach. Of course, he's thinking Venmo and mobile vendor and all these things in his mind as a 5th grader, obviously. And so he thought, he's I think we could do this app, and where kids could get on, and if you have a question, there's somebody in your school who could help you. And so it's so easy. If you just say, I get out of math class and I don't understand the material, there's somebody in an AP math class in your school who you could be hey, meet me at the library after and explain this to me because I didn't get it when the teacher explained it. And so that's essentially how yteach started.
Is this the next Facebook, dude?
So
think about it.
Yeah. It's almost one of those where he's explaining it to me at that moment, and I was it's so simple, and it is such a great way to be able to help so many people all at the same time.
And build relationships.
Yeah.
So can any kid, can my kids sign up on that?
So the way it's working, and one of our big things is that...
Because my son's can I be... You know what happened the other days? I'm coming down the stairs, and Sean's going, Alexa, what's 15 times 2? I'm And she's answering. I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
You can't get the answer from Alexa.
So, but anyhow, yes. How does that work? Like, how do you?
So we essentially do a subscription like any other app that the schools are using, Reading Plus or Reflex Math. The school subscribes to yTeach, and we create a platform just within the school. So it stays safe. We're like, for example, we beta tested at Belen Jesuit, and so it's only you had to have the domain of Belen in order to sign in. So you couldn't have like a random stranger coming and signing in to meet with these students or anything like that. I mean, that was the point. Me, with a legal background, I'm thinking, like no bullying, like super protection, all of this stuff. And so it's protected like that. And then another big part of the mission was like, everybody should have access to this. And when you're talking about education, it's so expensive. What you see families are spending on like tutoring and schools and all these extracurriculars that they're trying to, my kid has to have 8 straight A's and everything. And it's like, we thought it shouldn't be like that. There are families who can't afford that, right? I can't.
So, you're a mom.
Yeah.
You have an educational platform.
Yeah.
Should every kid have straight A's? Should all kids have straight A's?
No, actually. I mean, I think...
Or should your kid be what he is?
I think
or what he or she is. They all have their different ability.
So whether it be a sport or in school, I do always ask my kids, I'll say, whether you won or lost, like, what did you learn from that match, that, test? What could you have done better? Where could you have improved? Whether you won or lost, like, there's always going to be something. You could have killed, like, you could have won 6-0, and there's something, I could have worked a little bit harder on changing the position of my toss, whatever it is. My footwork wasn't totally there, like, and how can I apply that to the next match? And so I don't necessarily I think they should always strive to put their best effort.
No doubt.
And that's what I care about. I mean, obviously, the straight A's is great.
Absolutely. And look, I'm sure your kids are getting great grades, and, my kids are getting good grades, but I'll give you a prime example. The other day, it was my daughter, Olivia. She got a report card, and she had, I think, straight A's. Yeah. I never had straight A's in my life. But again, it's a whole different story when it comes to that. But
we'll edit that part.
Yeah. Well, I wish I would have done things differently, but I learned, and now I'm trying to implement a different
What could you have done better? Like, you're applying it now.
Correct. I was so caught up in just being eligible. But, so she's like bragging about that, and I said, "Oh, that's great, Mama." And then she goes, "Are you happy?" I go, "Yeah, no, I'm happy, but I'm happy you got the straight, but that's not what really makes me happy." And she goes, "Well, what do you mean, Dad?" And I said, "I'm so happy because I know the work that you're putting in every single day to get those straight A's, and I know that sometimes we can control our process, but we can't always control the result. No. And sometimes the teacher's going to give you a question you just don't know. No. And that doesn't mean that you weren't smart enough to answer. That means you didn't understand it at that time. No. But if you can always go back and work and figure that answer out. But what I was trying to tell her is I'm more concerned and I'm more challenging them in the process of the preparation part. So I know that she comes home and my son will come home and they're going to sit down for an hour and a half, whatever it takes that day. They're going to do their homework. They do have tutors. They're very blessed to have that. Mm-hmm. Not every kid, like you said,
has that opportunity.
Not every parents have the means to do that. And it's amazing. I can only imagine what hopefully your platform can one day be that amazing that I can reach the children that don't have those resources. But I know she's putting in the work, and I have more admiration for that. And I also think that by me doing that and my wife doing that, we're also teaching them that, hey, like, you don't need all this extra stress of what other people are going to think about you. I think sometimes we live in this world where, like, you go to these dinner parties or whatever you may have, and parents are so caught up in, oh, my kid has straight A's, and I'm like, well, that's great, but he's stressed out of his mind and he's not in a good place. And, correct, and it's almost like that's become his identity. And yes, kids should be educated and kids should do the best that they can, but I think there's more. I think you're going to get more out of life by teaching your kids to prepare, give he or she put out their best, and good things are going to happen. Versus being so result oriented. And I see it Because even my kids, like, they're at a private school and they feel like, oh, you know,
Yeah, the
it's like
pressure's around.
it's like
You're
the
like-
atmosphere because it's
Yeah.
the topic, and even though I'm telling them that, they're also hearing what the other
Yeah.
kids are taught.
Yeah.
So I think that's amazing that first of all, you're teaching your kids what did you do to help somebody today, which tells me that they're already learning that life's not about them,
Yeah.
right? And that they're going to fall in love with the process, right? And the
Absolutely.
process is never ending; it's just ever evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that I'd mention. One, there's a great book, and I don't know if you've already read it, called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and
No.
she's essentially like the
Mindset.
It's essentially getting into like a growth mindset, which is exactly what you're explaining. You and your wife are trying to teach
Our kids, as best we
Yeah,
can.
you're like, how do you say? Let's say they got
who's
an
the author again?
Carol Dweck, Dweck. Carol. She's actually on TED Talks too. You could watch an abridged version of the book, which she has like 4 TED Talks, but she's fantastic as far as, the whole thing is almost like not yet. Maybe you don't have an A, not yet. Like, but how do we get there? If they had an A in art, like I'm going into a class that's sort of subjective, but it's like, I love how you shadowed. I love how you used all these different colors. Why'd you decide to do this? So it's asking those type of questions instead of focusing on like, oh, it's great that you got an A in this assignment. So really, to your point, like, how do you encourage the process and the effort rather than the end result to push them forward? I think it's really important. And the other thing too, as far as even with Why Teach and Matias was, in some schools right now, they're actually not just, they're trying to expand it outside. And his vision was like, everybody has a skill, everybody has something to offer. And maybe you're not the straight A student, but maybe you're a crazy athlete who could train somebody who's struggling in the gym. Or maybe you're a musician and, you don't have the straight A's, but I could teach somebody else how to play the guitar. So we're actually at a school who's using it also for like music and nutrition and things like that, because it's like everybody has something to offer, and it may not be the A grade they have, but they have some other special skill or talent that makes them special, that they should be giving that out. So it's important to, I think with our kids, yes, encourage them to put the best effort, but like also let them be who they are meant to be and encourage that. It may not be your way of doing it, but sometimes taking like a deep breath and taking a step back to see,
Letting them play their game, and then you have a household of 2 attorneys. Your kids don't have to be attorneys, right?
We ask them not to be attorneys. that is our one request. I'm like, not be a lawyer.
but it's true, and just to hit on your point, let your kids be who they are.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a thing in my daughter's room, and it says "Be you."
Yeah.
And it's we even here as an office sometimes, one of the things that I've learned in leadership and where I failed the most is, I, being an ex-athlete, I'm used to the in your face, get it done mentality, and I'm okay with that. I kind of like that,
Yeah,
and I embrace that. But when you come into this business world and when you leave that environment and you go into a different environment, you tell somebody that nowadays, and they think that they either become very intimidated by that, they take it personal.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I realized that my style, my approach wasn't working.
No.
And I'm like, man, my heart is there.
No.
Like, where am I failing? And about 2 weeks ago, it hit me. I've been talking to a group of people, and I realized, Lourdes, like, and anyway, your point now is, you said everybody has something to offer, right?
No.
I realized that they don't see that in them.
No.
I saw the diamond, so I'm talking to you with that level of expectation, because I'm not.
No.
When we have these conversations, it's by no means to intimidate you or you're in trouble or you're fired. No, it's the opposite. It's like our standard is excellence. This is where we're going. It's the standard of excellence here is not flexible.
No.
what is flexible is that we can make mistakes.
Absolutely.
We're gonna make mistakes. We're gonna try not to. But we're gonna give the best service. We're gonna answer an email in a timely manner. We're gonna be kind.
No.
But going back to what you said, it's so important to be able to lead our children, and especially as a mom, in finding that diamond that's in them and leading them. And there's so many people that become adults and they don't see it. So you're talking to them and you're like, you're great, you should be doing this. And they're looking at you, and internally they're not listening to nothing you just told them. All they hear is fear, the little man voice, right? All they hear is that, oh my God, I'm in trouble. I'm going to be fired. And it's the complete opposite. And I realized, like, oh my God, like, some people just don't know the gift that they have.
Yeah.
And I think as parents, if we can identify and help them find that gift, I think it's amazing. And it leads to a healthier emotional intelligence in that human being, which I believe then helps you so much later on in your life. So that's
no, I think,
makes sense at all,
For sure. I think something that sometimes we as parents drop the ball is not showing them our failures, not showing them, I made a mistake, so that they see, sort of that human side of, my mom is not perfect and she makes mistakes all the time, and how am I resilient after? That's what I want her to see. I want my daughter and my son to see me and say, like, well, she fell but she got back up. Like
mom is resilient and resourceful.
We're gonna be gritty, we're gonna, like, all that stuff, we're gonna come out stronger because of those failures. So I think a place where sometimes we fall short, is I remind myself, I'll be like, maybe that wasn't the best move. I should have gone this route, or, what do you think? How do you think we should, take that approach, and try not to, like, even answer their questions first, like, sort of
listen.
So like something happened in school, like, how do you think you should have handled that differently, or, like, what do you think you should have done, instead of me saying this is how you should have handled it.
Correct.
I'm only imposing my response.
Yeah. No, and it's true, because I think that parents, like my dad my dad's told me and my grandmother has told me, and it's like, nobody gave us a book on how to do this, right? You do the best that you can.
Yeah.
I'm sure that our kids will do things somewhat differently than we will in certain aspects of their life and whatnot. But I think that there's nothing wrong with showing our children that, hey, mom and dad aren't perfect, and mom and dad are going to have disagreements, and mom and dad are. We're just as human as you are. We're just older, and we're here to lead you and whatnot. But I just think that the most important part is really setting up an environment for them that's healthy emotionally, and giving them, allowing them to make mistakes. You know? Now, there's certain mistakes that I think are completely unavoidable, right?
Yeah.
But if your kid gets a bad grade, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It can't be like. You're in prison.
You can save them.
Correct.
You can save them. You shouldn't, I've said... I'm
going to do my homework for my kid. No, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing their project. I'm not doing, like, this pretty project at the end. I was like... And I think sometimes it's important for them to hit that wall. Like...
That's where you grow.
How do you get out of it? For sure. It's... And even what you were saying, like, how do they find their own thing? My daughter dances...
So 2 boys and a daughter.
I have 1 boy and a girl.
Okay, 1 boy and a girl.
So Matias and Emma. And Emma dances.
Olivia wants to dance really bad. She was dancing, but then the whole thing started happening.
Yeah, and it was hard.
Yeah.
Actually, so Emma was dancing her whole life.
Okay.
COVID happens. She's in another Zoom room doing dance, and she was like, I can't do it. I'm done. So she stops. And she's just struggling now. Like, she really, we're struggling, right, with COVID. And I think everybody's trying to make the best of it, and how to stay positive. Like, even though all this is happening and all these, life isn't, quote unquote, normal. And so I can't imagine how hard it is for them to be processing it. But she stopped, and then she was unhappy. And finally, at one point, I'm like, do you want to start, they opened up the studio, do you want to try it again? And my mind, I'm just like, I remember being the 3-year-old who memorized my mom's work number because I was like begging not to go to dance. I was like, I hated it. I wanted to be outside. But I see that she lights up when she does it. And I'm like, I can't,
take that away.
No. I mean, that's where you are at your best.
How are you, and this is a great topic right now, especially in real time. How have you been able to kind of navigate this whole COVID situation with having 2 kids at home, one's a dancer, one's rowing,
Yeah.
Have you also allowed them to participate in where you felt comfortable and like?
I mean, it's been really difficult.
Yeah. Especially
I think,
the beginning was like, it's like you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I was sort of waiting to see how each one was handling it. With rowing for Matias, it was it was really strict. They had 1 bus per boat. There's only 9 guys on a boat at a time. So and then you're sort of feeling a little bit better in the sense they're out in the fresh air. It's moving. Nothing's like coming at their face. They're not even facing each other. Like you're rowing and your back is to the other person. So I'm thinking, well, I guess maybe that helps. Hopefully. And Emma, it was the same. It was sort of just. I don't think there's a right answer. I think it was sort of give yourself that grace to. Go whenever you feel. And I think giving each other, even like other families and stuff, grace to be like, everybody's going to feel like
different.
What's right for them at what time. And that might change. Like today, maybe I feel okay and tomorrow I may not. And I have to be okay with that. And, and that's it. So
I feel like most people you watch, especially here in Miami, like I feel like people just kind of trust their intuition. Like you kind of know, like, okay, I feel comfortable today.
Yeah.
We can do a little more, and then there's days you wake up and you're a little bit more cautious. And I think using your own intuition and common sense is really, I will say that kids have been affected.
Yeah.
Kids have been affected, and kids have become the depression, and especially kids that come from environments where there's lack of resources.
Yeah.
And not having school, not having teachers, not having This is where some kids get their eat, right? Like,
yeah.
We should all be able to have food, right?
Yeah.
Just feed me.
2 meals. A lot of them. They're getting
2 meals,
like.
Right? So I do believe it's been extremely challenging, and kids. I've also seen more kids navigate towards like their playing of like Fortnite and this and that because it's kind of like, okay, I got nothing else to do, and then you kind of become obsessed in that world, and I'm like, man, it's kind of scary. How do we pull them back? And one of the things that I think about us Americans is that we're risk takers, and at some point you look at life, and I mean you've going back to Javi's situation, like it didn't happen, but like you've kind of felt that moment already without it, God willing, gracias a Dios, not being real. Yeah. But at some point you're like, you got to get on the plane again. Yeah. Right? You got to take that flight. Yeah. And I'm not saying to be irresponsible, but at some point I think for our kids' psyche, I think we got to go. We're going to have to just kind of like do this, trust the process. I think our teachers out there, nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to, and hold people accountable. Like, hey, kind of be responsible, wear your mask when you need to. And I do, a lot of times I feel like media always plays like the 1% or 5% of people that actually just don't care. But there's 95% of Americans who are actually respectful. Doesn't matter what political side you're on. Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to end up in a hospital. Nobody wants your kids to be. And I think it's important. I think it's important for kids to get back on the field. It's starting to happen. Obviously, we live in Florida, and maybe the warm weather, something has helped us, but it's huge. So, but why teach? That's.
We see it actually even at YTeach as far as, it initially, the platform really encouraged, when we first launched, it was actually May of 2019. And so COVID hadn't hit yet. And one of our big, we're really trying to encourage these kids to meet, to work on those social skills, to help each other, explain material. They're losing a little bit of that because everything's going by text and like 3 words. It's like, oh, now I have to sit down and explain something to somebody else and have that conversation back and forth. So it was actually almost terrifying when COVID started, because I thought, okay, we've been,
working so hard,
focused on
the interaction.
Yeah, and I'm like, we're getting them off a video game, and so now what do you do? And I think like any business, right? And I know you guys know this super well, but like, where do you pivot? Where do you, how do you strengthen these other areas, and where do you look? And so thankfully, with everything we have too, between Zoom and all that, then kids were getting back on, and then they're going through Zoom. And it was actually we received an email from a parent, that her son was, playing video games. That's his only time to socialize. He's just at home, not going into school, and started doing some sessions. And essentially this tutor became like a mentor friend. And she's like, it was so nice to walk by the room and hear him laugh, like with a friend and stuff. And I thought, man, this is best day ever. Like this email, she just, I don't even know her name. Like she's awesome. Just made our day, because, you do see that the kids miss that. Like my daughter had a really hard time because she, finished 5th grade at one school and went into a new school for middle school. Okay. And so she was totally in that transition where we had this conversation last night, in fact, that she's like, I felt like I couldn't say bye to my friends because we never went back. And then in the new school, which they've done an incredible job, and she's just sort of like, also, we're not totally immersed, we're not switching, so all these friendships are sort of established, and she's sort of trying to like, build her personality and like grow and sort of show who she is. And I'm like, it's a hard situation, mm-hmm. Like she's really, and I'm like so impressed by how strong she is as far as how they are adaptable. I think kids are so much stronger and so much more capable than we ever give them credit for.
They're resilient. Kids are resilient, and they have the ability to
they handle things sometimes better than adults.
And you know what? And we're all correct. And it's because, at one point we were all resilient. We were all kids. Yeah. And then you get older and you feel all the responsibility. And there's this unconditional love for these children that are walking this earth that have been, in my opinion, given to you by God to take care of them, nourish them, and enjoy this whole life thing. But it's amazing. And then what you're doing with Y Teach, and I can see there's so many characteristics that you took. I can tell you from your athletic background, from your upbringing to who you are today as a mom. So before we wrap this up, I got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
Ready? Number 1 question is, what do you think your children love the most about you as a mom? And the second question will be, as a mom to a dancer, to an athlete, and let's say it would have been, what advice would you give other moms when you see that their children have this passion to want to be whatever it is that they want to be? Mm-hmm. How should they support that? So, but the first question is, what do you think when your kids look at mom, what's the one thing they say that they probably love the most about you?
I'm trying to think of both of them and put them into one. I think I would hope that they feel that I'm always there. I think, whether it's the good or the bad, like that I'm always there. And something I'd say to this that really actually had a huge impact on me was somebody asked my daughter, I would say, do this for your wife, for like if her birthday's coming up or, Mother's Day. Somebody had asked my daughter, write down 13 things you love most about your mom. And I literally kept that paper because I was like, I was a hot mess, like, reading it. But I'm thinking, at the time, I think Emma was like 8, and I said, if she sees me like this, I have to, push myself to prove that I am. Yeah. I was thinking I'm normal. I'm not anything special. So.
But you're a mom.
No, but, and moms out and dads, I do push Javi a lot. So I think the mom is really important, but I'll tell you, I have a good relationship with my dad. My dad's, an incredible person. I think he did the best he could with what he knew. But, I wouldn't say like I had I couldn't remember like a time that my dad ever picked me up at school or something like that. And I'm always like, you know, I know it's hard, and I know some days feel really hard, but like, just make sure you give them that memory of like, one day you're gonna pick them up because you got out, or you take your lunch break during that time. And so it's definitely, you know, us working as a team and making sure we're on the same page as far as how we want to, you know, parent them and what aspects. I think, you know, Javi's not a sports background whatsoever. I mean, he jokes, he's like, you're the most competitive person. I always joke back, and he'd probably roll his eyes. I'm like, I'm not competitive with you. I know I could be you, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm competitive with myself. How could I be the best I can? It has nothing to do with the loss. It's like, how could I be better? Is how I always feel. And so I think my kids, hopefully they feel that, you know, I see how good, to your point, you know, you see people here in the office and you're like, I see what you could do. How can I push you to see that too? You know, and there's that great quote of like, you know, you have to be the first person to believe in you before anybody else does. Like, no, the rest is noise. So, you know, hopefully I can live up to whatever list they have, you know, and push them. I know they definitely, I've learned more from them than they've learned from me.
I say the same thing. So, I actually posted a thing on my daughter yesterday. I'm like, she's the best coach I've ever had.
Yeah.
And, you know, coming from a home where I had divorced parents, I'll be honest with you, I never saw a man hug my mom.
No.
So I had to learn how to be more sensitive, and, you know, I'm this athlete, male, go-getter, and then when I had my little girl, I'm like, well, time out, because someone's going to hold that hand one day, and she holds me accountable. I mean, she really does, and even for my son, you know, the way he's got to treat his wife one day, and his sister and whatnot. So
I tell that to my kids all the time too.
And man, I've learned. I'll be honest with you, something that I you know, I'm great at giving love. I was terrible at accepting it, but I've learned, you know, through my kids to embrace that, and through my wife and whatnot. But I want to thank you. You've been amazing. This is so cool because I get a mom, I get a wife, I got an athlete, and it, you know, my wife wasn't an athlete, but my wife carries so many hats. Yeah. And sometimes you're like, man, like, it's like she's got to be, you know, she's got to wake up early, feed the kids, take them to school, do this, do that, and I'm complaining about, I've got 3 Zoom calls, a conference call, I've got a guy in New York eating me alive, I got to go get this deal, and then you realize, man, but hold on a minute, like, Dan, they do so much, you know, and I can tell you that my life could not work without her.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think reminder of that. I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
I do. I'm definitely doing it.
The random text is nice.
No doubt.
You know, so I think absolutely. And thank you for your time. I really
thank you. You've
appreciate it.
been amazing. So thank you so much for being on.
Absolutely.